Hello everyone. I welcome all of you for studying administrative law. Administrative law is a very versatile discipline of law, which is one of the newly evolving areas of law, and it is uh, one of the latest legal disciplines which is still in the process of growth and development. So, first of all, let us share the syllabus which you are going to study in this semester. Now, the very important objective with which I have framed the syllabus of administrative law is to make you learn all the important concepts and principles of administrative law, which are very, very important in the functioning of administrative authority, in the appropriate functioning of the state, and you will be encouraged to think about the different sectors of administrative law and how can those areas of administrative law address the issues of governance. You shall be learning the meaning, nature, and scope of administrative law and will understand the difference between disciplines like constitutional law and administrative law and administrative law and public administration, since there are certain overlaps between these disciplines. And constitutional law, when comes into function, it leads to administrative law. We shall also discuss during the course of the study about the growth of administrative law, the evolution of administrative law. You will study about the different definitions, and we shall study the green light, red light theory of administrative law and the amber light theory also, in which we can place the various definitions. My objective is to discuss with you the concept of rule of law and separation of powers, along with the concept of droit administrative, and then all the other different varieties of exercise of power by the administrative authorities. You should be in a position to understand. My objective is to teach to you and discuss with you the different powers which are exercised by the administrative bodies, and I expect this outcome from you, that by the end of this course you will be in a position to identify the different characteristics of administrative law, and you can justify the development of administrative law explaining the reasons of growth. You should be in a position at the end of the course to explain the different sources of administrative law, the relationship between administrative law and other disciplines, in the position to explain the different explanations or definitions of administrative law, and to segregate that which of those explanations are supporting the red light theory, which of those explanations are supporting the green light theory, and which of the authors belong to the amber light school of law, which are supporting the amber light theory, which is a mixture of both the red light and green light approach. And you should be in a position to appropriately understand separation of power and the rule of law, and you should be in a position to explain these in the light of the functioning of administrative authorities in India at the end of the course. And whenever any problem is given to you, you must be in a position to decide that by applying the various principles of administrative law. I also expect that at the end of the course, you must be having a fair knowledge and you should be in a position to explain the working of administrative tribunals, the making of delegated legislation, the concept of droit administrative or droit administrative as it is called in French, and the functioning of Lokpal in India also. And wherever at the end of the course, whenever a situation of exercise of administrative discretion is given to you, and you should be in a position to suggest any remedy after finding out if there is any fault in the performance of that administrative function. And you should also be in a position to explain the different kinds of controls over administrative action, the judicial review over administrative action, the remedies which can be afforded to the people in case of the faults committed by administrative authorities. And I expect that you should also be in a position to explain the working of public corporations in India and the different kinds of control mechanisms over those public corporations. And also, you should be in a position to discuss the functioning of regulatory authorities in India at the end of the course. So, this is the outcome which I expect that the course would bring. Now, let me discuss with you the course outline. The course is bifurcated into 10 units. The first unit is the introductory one, in which we shall be learning the nature and scope of administrative law and the definitions which are given by various authors like Ivor, Jennings, Davis, and also certain Indian authors. We shall also discuss the reasons for the growth of administrative law in this unit and the different sources, because administrative law in India is not a codified law. So, what are the sources of administrative law is also very, very important for us to learn. So, that is covered in the unit number one. And we shall also discuss the comparison of constitutional law and the public administration with administrative law. We will also be learning the various theories like rule of law and draw administrative or do administrative, which is a French conception. And at the end of this unit, we shall be learning about the newly emerging aspect of global administrative law. Now, this will be the structure of unit number one. Now, let us see the contents of unit number two. The unit two is about the classification of functions of the administrative authorities. So, we shall begin with the separation of power. So, how the state is inbuilt in a specific manner to respect the theory of separation of powers. So, what is the meaning of separation of powers and what are the actual applications of it? We shall learn here in Unit 2 whether the watertight compartment of the functions of the state can be done, or whether there is some blend which is necessary, and how checks and balances, what could be the role of checks and balances there. And because of that dilution of the notion of separation of power, the functions of executive, the function of administrative authorities have increased manifold. So we shall discuss this, and we shall also be covering the difficulty in characterization of the functions, because there is an overlap between the nature of functions. So sometimes it is very difficult to strictly uh, place the function in a particular category, whether it is a quasi-judicial one or whether it is a purely administrative function. So what are those difficulty areas in the characterization of functions? We shall see in this unit. And we shall see that primarily there are three kinds of functions of administrative authorities, which is subordinate legislation or the rule making functions of administrative bodies, then the quasi-judicial functions performed by the administrative authorities, and then is the third one, which is considered to be the purely administrative function of administrative authorities. So, after learning these functions, we shall also study the difference between these different kind of functions. How can we, by and large, broadly differentiate between these functions on the basis of the characteristics of these functions. So this will be the unit number 2. Now let us see the plan of third unit. The third unit is about subordinate legislation and its controls. Now, subordinate legislation, as it's clear from the name, is a legislation which is subordinate in nature. Now, this term is coming from the source that the legislation, which is the primary legislator. The primary legislator is the legislative, uh, whether the legislative assemblies, parliament, or Congress, whatever name it might be having. So that is the primary legislation, which is the outcome of the authority, which is by constitution entrusted with the lawmaking function. And in contrast to that, subordinate Legislation is that legislation which is emerging out of, or which is the product of a body which is subordinate in the area of lawmaking than the primary legislator. So subordinate legislation is also known by different names. Like in America, the very popular name for subordinate legislation is the delegated legislation. We can also call it as administrative rule making, as the administrative authorities frame various rules which are operative as law. So, subordinate legislation and its controls is the name of unit number 3, and where we shall be discussing about the concept of subordinate legislation and the reasons for the growth of subordinate legislation. And along with that, we shall also cover the advantages and disadvantages of the subordinate legislation or delegated legislation. Another very important aspect which is covered in this unit is about the classification. So there are various grounds, there are various bases to classify the delegated legislation or subordinate legislation, and those bases to classify are wide. Like nomenclature could be one basis, because subordinate legislation is framed by various names. Sometimes it is called a rule, sometimes those uh, administratively made rules are called regulations, sometimes bylaw is a name. uh, so there is nomenclature based classification is a very wide area. Now along with that, authority based classification is another one, which is based upon the authority from which the delegated legislation is emerging. Then on that basis we can bifurcate into the plainly delegated legislation and sub-delegation. Then purpose based classification is there, and then authority based classification is also very important, uh, which is subordinate legislation and conditional legislation. These are technically complex terms which are used in the area of subordinate lawmaking. We shall discuss all of these kinds of classifications in unit number 3. Then we shall also be discussing in this unit essential legislative functions. So, uh, and we shall be discussing constitutionality or extent of delegation also. So it depends upon the constitution that how much can be delegated, to whom it can be delegated, what is the extent of delegation beyond which it will be treated to be excessive delegation and unconstitutional delegation. So there is a evolution of a particular, we may call it a principle, essential legislative functions, that the essential functions cannot be delegated. We shall learn there that the non-essential functions can be delegated, and what is essential will depend upon the constitution. And after all of this, we shall be discussing the controls over delegated legislation. So there are primarily three kinds of controls which are operative over delegated legislation, which are the legislative controls, executive controls, and the judicial controls. So with that, the third unit will be complete, which shall be wound up by looking at the judicial control. Various very important cases would be discussed, like in the Delhi Laws Act case is there in unit number 3. Then after that, let us see what is there in unit number 4. So the fourth unit is about administrative discretion. Administrative discretion is a very important power of administrative authorities, and they are having lots of scope to make a choice what is to be done, what not uh, to be done. So there are multiple courses of actions available in front of the administrative authorities, and they exercise their discretion to decide that what is appropriate in particular set of circumstances. So we shall discuss in unit 4 the meaning of administrative discretion. The different administrative jurists have defined it. So what are the definitions? We shall discuss that. And the difference between the different kinds of the functions of the administrative process we shall discuss here. And ministerial and discretionary powers, two kinds of powers are actually conferred to the administrative authorities. And when they perform this work, sometimes they have to do the administrative work as a duty where they do not have any choice. So it is called, this is simply the meaning of the ministerial functions, that where there is no choice and the work is to be performed by way of duty, that is called as a ministerial work. And in contrast to that, discretionary powers give a scope uh, to the authority, give a latitude, give a flexibility to the administrative bodies to decide that what should they do, what they should not do. In the particular set of circumstances, they can make a decision, and that is administrative discretion, which is applied by them to reach to that decision. So there are various kind of controls over administrative discretion which are necessitated because of the power which is there in this discretion, because discretion is considered to be one of the most important weapon in the hands of administrative bodies, which course of action they should take. So that is why definitely when it is a important power which can affect the people, we need sufficient controls over it. So we shall uh, divide those controls. We have divided them into three, and we shall learn how legislative controls are operative over administrative discretion, how executive controls are operative over discretion, and how judicial control uh, is operative over administrative discretion. We shall discuss this in unit number 4. Following that, unit number 5 is an entirely different area of administrative law, and it deals with the administrative tribunals. So, uh, the administrative tribunals are there in addition to the general judicial courts, and we often say that they are the part of administrative justice system. So in contrast to the judicial justice system, which comprises of the courts, we have different kinds of administrative tribunals. We have set of administrative tribunals at different levels which are performing specialized decision making functions. So we shall learn about the need of administrative justice, because there are definitely certain shortcomings in the traditional judicial justice system which had necessitated the growth of some additional system, if not alternative, additional system of tribunals which are different from courts. So here we shall learn what is that shortcoming in the judicial justice system, why we needed administrative justice, why we needed to establish the tribunals, and we shall be murdered first of all in France. So we will learn there that how the adoption of the uh, administrative tribunals in France are popularly known as Council d'Etat had taken place in India, and the French conception of administrative law is called as droit administrative or droit administrative. So we shall learn that how that concept is adopted in India, how that French concept is adopted in India, and we shall also read there the Franks Committee report, how they, which is an English report. So how the tribunals developed in England, how they developed in UK, what are the recommendations which are given by the Franks Committee regarding the functioning of tribunals. We shall also be discussing that in this particular unit. So we will read in a manner the evolution of administrative tribunals. Now, the distinction between the administrative tribunals, courts, and general administrative authorities is also very important for us to understand. So, we shall be reading that also. And the tribunals in India, what is the classification of the tribunals in India? We shall learn that also. And there are different kinds of tribunals which are provided in Indian constitution. So we shall learn what are the different kinds of tribunals which are provided in Indian constitution. And we know that there is a provision for central administrative tribunal and state administrative tribunal. The tribunals under Indian constitution are by added by way of amendment. So part 14A was added in the constitution of India, and uh, resultantly there are two articles inserted, 323A and 323B. Article 323A is related to the establishment of central administrative tribunal and the state administrative tribunals. Now, apart from that, we shall learn the inquiry commissions also in the same unit. So this will be the coverage of this unit number 5, which is about administrative tribunals. And then the unit 6 is about the principles of natural justice. Now we have seen that administrative tribunals perform quasi judicial functions. They are very important in administrative decision making. Now we also know this thing that they perform various kinds of functions. By in your studies of constitutional law, you must have come across various administrative tribunals. So the procedure which is to be followed by these tribunals and the procedure which is to be applied by the administrative authorities when they perform quasi judicial functions, and now even when they perform administrative functions, there is certain procedural norms which they must follow, and this is called as the principles of natural justice. Those norms are called as the principles of natural justice. So the unit number 6 is all about the principles of natural justice. What are those principles? We shall see in the introductory part from where how they evolved, from where they evolved, what is the need of them, those principles. Then what are the basic principles of natural justice? There are predominantly two: right of hearing and rule against bias. But there is another one which is a speaking order, which is newly emerging principle, and some of the authors consider speaking order as the last component of right of hearing, and some of the authors consider it as a separate principle of natural justice. And then we shall also learn that how these principles are applied in the administrative functioning and in the quasi judicial functioning. We shall also learn that under which situations they can be excluded, because there are certain exceptional situations in which the exclusion of principles of natural justice can be done. And then we shall also read in this unit 6 that what are the effect of breach of the principles of natural justice, whether the decision taken by the administrative authority would be void, or it will be merely voidable, or it shall be valid under particular situations. This is the last part of unit number 6. Then after that we shall learn unit number 7, which is about the judicial control of administrative actions. So because of these different variety of the powers performed by the administrative authorities perform various kinds of functions. Delegated legislation, also subordinate legislation, they are making rules, they are performing quasi judicial functions, they are performing purely administrative functions, exercising administrative discretion also. So we need to have certain controls over them. So what is the role of the court? Judicial control, how can it be exercised? It is to be taken as a separate topic. The what are the techniques of the judicial control of administrative action? Primarily unit 7 deal with those. So the development of judicial review over the administrative bodies, and the writs are there. Basically this unit is about writs, control by way of writs. So how the writs: habeas corpus, writ of mandamus, writ of prohibition, writ of certiorari, and writ of quo warranto, how these writs, uh, what kind of role these writs play in controlling the administrative authorities, or when the fault is committed, what kind of remedies are provided by resorting to these writs is provided there, and is to be discussed in unit number 7. Then next is Unit 8, which is about ombudsman. And in that, we all know that accountability is very, very important, and there are various attempts to ensure the accountability of the government, and doctrine of public accountability is also recognized by the courts now to fix the responsibility of the people, to hold them accountable, to hold the public servants accountable. So ombudsman is a very, very important thing, concept. So in the beginning of unit 8, we shall learn about the concept of ombudsman. We shall learn about the concept of ombudsman in Scandinavian country, from where it had originated, and then how common law countries have developed the concept of parliamentary commissioner. They popularly call it parliamentary commissioner, or commissioner is the term which is common in the common law countries. For the institute of ombudsman, they use commissioner term. And then we shall see the Indian adaptation, which is Lokpal. And we know that Lokayuktas started functioning even before Lokpal in India. So we will also see in detail what kinds of struggles are undertaken in developing the institution of Lokpal in India, how Lokayukta is functioning. We shall uh, see with the help of Lokayukta of Madhya Pradesh, and the salient features of Lokpal and Lokayukt Act 2013 we shall learn in this unit. How the working of Lokpal take place, what are the shortcomings, we shall also be looking at the shortcomings. And this is about the Lokpal 2013 Act. Under 2013 Act, apart from this, there are specialized ombudsmen under other legislations, like under the banking law. There is a concept of banking ombudsman. Institution of insurance ombudsman is also established under the insurance law. So in the specific areas to take care of the specific areas, the ombudsmen are functioning in the various specialized sectors also. So we shall also see with the help of few examples that how these institutions of ombudsmen are functioning in India. Now after that, the next or the second last unit is the unit number 9, which is about public corporations. Now, in this unit, we all know that the public corporations or public undertakings play a very, very important role in the performance of welfare functions, and in the performance of the responsibility of the state, in discharging of the responsibility of the state. They play a very important role. So, public corporations are why made, how can we define them, what are the objectives to establish public corporations, what are the characteristics of the public corporations, this also we shall be learning. And we shall also learn the classification of public corporations. They are established for different purpose, and on the basis of which there are some developmental corporations, there are some business corporations, there are various, some of them are performing social functions, social security, for that they are working. So classification also we shall learn. Then what are the rights and duties of public corporations, we shall also study that in unit number 9. And then, like we have done in the other units, public corporations are in a way a center of power, serving the nation and fulfilling the objective of welfare state. So we necessarily must have appropriate control over them. So we shall learn how these three kinds of controls are operative over public corporations: the legislative control, firstly, and then the executive control, and lastly the judicial control. And along with that, there is a control by media and public also, which also we shall discuss in this unit number 9. Last unit is about regulatory authorities. Now, regulatory authorities are specific institutions which are playing a very, very important role in the administration, and they are considered to be very important limbs of the state. They emerged in USA and in India also. Now we have network of various regulatory authorities which are playing very, very important role. So we shall begin with the study of the need and origin of regulatory authorities under unit 10, which is the last unit. And we shall also study about the nature and functions of the regulatory authorities in unit 10. the growth of regulatory authorities in India, what is the reason of growth, why we needed regulation. And the regulatory authority not only regulate, they perform various kinds of functions. So what are the reasons for the growth of regulatory authorities in India? This we shall be learning in this unit number 10, and we will see regulatory authorities in functioning. How are the regulatory authorities actually functioning in India? There are various areas of um, different areas of state action in which the regulatory authorities are functioning. Uh, there are diverse areas like Telecom Regulatory Authority of India is functioning in the telecom sector. In the insurance, we find Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority. University Grants Commission is again a regulatory authority. Then we have Competition Commission of India. We have SEBI. We have in the food sector, we have FSI, another new regulatory authority. So the different areas of human activity are to be controlled, and for that different specific regulatory mechanisms are developed, regulatory authorities are developed. So we shall see how, under which legislation those regulatory authorities are framed, and how are those regulatory authorities actually functioning. This we shall study in unit number 10. So this is the course breakup, which these are the course contents which we have to read in this semester in the topic of administrative law. And it is a very important subject which is having blend of other disciplines also. So we have a scope for interdisciplinary study in administrative law, and lots of creativity you can show while studying administrative law. The book which I am recommending is The Principles of Administrative Law, written by MP Jain and SN Jain. And apart from that, there are various other books, like there is a book written by Justice Thakkar, and along with that, there are certain other notes, etc., which also I shall be. I have in the course material I have shared with you, and I will keep on sharing time to time. So hope you will be learning all of these topics bifurcated into 10 units of administrative law with interest, and you are having various resources and source materials to um, make your study more invigorated along with this lecture. And we will be following an interdisciplinary approach while reading administrative law, and we shall be globally connecting the various issues of the studies of administrative law, and we'll also be finding out that what are the challenges in undertaking those different vast varieties and areas of administrative law. So I wish a happy learning to all of you. Thank you so much for being with me in this lecture. All the best to you.